This week saw the release of the 4th issue of Absolute Batman, the series set in a new universe that was created by the evil new god, Darkseid. On the surface, these new versions of our heroes are quite different. They exist without any of the advantages that they had had in the mainline universe. Wonder Woman isn't a princess of a perfect island nation of warrior women. She was raised in hell by a witch. Superman didn't rocket to Earth as an infant to be raised by the kindly Kents. He was on the doomed Krypton until he was a teenager. And Batman isn't a socialite billionaire, he's a working class civil engineer, built like a tank. Yet, despite these big differences, they're still recognisably our beloved heroes. When last we saw Batman, he had been relentlessly battling Black Mask and his party animals, who were running riot through Gotham. However, when Black Mask offered a truce along with a huge payout, Batman reluctantly accepted. This issue doesn't pick up where our last issue ended. Instead, this is a flashback issue focusing more on Bruce Wayne's path to becoming Batman. The story jumps around in time a fair bit, but it's pretty easy to follow. The key time periods are before the massacre at the zoo, when Bruce is ideating his entry to the Young Engineers competition, during Joe Chill's trial, and Batman's early days. The first thing to discuss is the very earliest version of Batman that we're shown. Other Batmen have had early day stories where they dress up in a less intimidating costume to fight crime, while they're still trying to define themselves. For instance, Batman's veteran costume from Year 1, or the ski mask vigilante from Batman Mask of the Phantasm. But this early of Batman is quite different. While his costume resembles the mainline DC Universe Batman with a more traditional symbol and cape, his approach is entirely different. He presents himself as a vampire bat with red contact lenses and fangs that are loaded with a paralytic agent. He skulks around on rooftops and ambushes criminals, scaring the Jesus out of them. It's reminiscent of the Elseworlds Vampire Batman or Justice League Gods and Monsters Batman, and he presents himself as a ruthless monster out to punish the criminals of Gotham. That's not the only difference, he's even tempted to use a gun. That would be heresy for the mainline Batman, but remember that the early Golden Age Batman also briefly used a gun. Absolute Batman doesn't actually use it, but he was sorely tempted. He realises that this Batman doesn't quite work, and so he returns to the drawing board. And his various attempts at refining his identity are compared to his childhood engineering competition, where he creates a device that can be used in an emergency. At first, it's a portable bridge, a lifeline for people trapped in a natural disaster. But through feedback and discussion with his father, it becomes something more. Young Bruce is fascinated by bats and highlights how unique they are with their adaptability, hence why he calls himself Batman later in life. It's not just his costume that develops over time, his whole attitude towards crime changes. We're shown a flashback to Joe Chill's trial, where Bruce Wayne has been given the opportunity to make a statement before Chill makes his own. Young Bruce holds back the tears as he screams that he doesn't care why Chill did what he did. Chill has robbed him of all of the joy in his life. He won't stay to hear Joe's excuses, and he hates him. And that's the position he was coming from in his earliest days of Batman, lashing out with violence, brutalizing criminals. However, as he observes the criminal organizations and how the law turns a blind eye to the gun smuggling that's taking place, he pauses and starts to think about why so many people let these terrible things happen. The simple answer is that life is hard, people are desperate, and the majority of participants aren't getting rich doing this, they're just about surviving. The people that are getting rich are the city officials and industrialists like Randall Powers and William Acme, the real cause of the problem. It's their legitimate companies that are being used to facilitate the crimes. And when they're exposed, these titans of industry state that they are shocked that their employees would misuse their companies and vow to support the investigation. In private, they instead lobby lawmakers to turn a blind eye. Batman had planned to confront these lawful but awful people at a ball, where they wore fine clothes and a mask of civility while making their dirty deals. There's a very clear reference to a similar scene in Batman Year 1, where Batman interrupts Carmine Falcone's private dinner, putting the corrupt officials on notice. But Absolute Batman stands down. Sure, he could beat them all senseless, but it wouldn't change anything. When one of them falls, another will step up to fill the gap in the system. He's going to have to adapt. And that's what leads to adult Bruce Wayne visiting Joe Chill to finally hear what the man had to say. Note that his initial reaction is to clench his hand into a fist, ready to strike, but he deliberately opens his hand and lays it flat against the glass. That right there demonstrates his willingness to adapt. I know there's been some chatter online about this Batman being too grimdark, but I think that this issue shows us that he's actually quite compassionate and reasonable. He takes inspiration from how adaptable bats are and refines his ideas, not just in terms of how to fight crime, but on the subject of who to fight. I think this is why Batman remains so rooted within his own community. Park Row used to be a nice place, but the gangs moved in and the neighbourhood became overrun with crime. This degradation of Gotham is nicely represented by a poster of a smiling cartoon character at the zoo. When Batman was a child, it was bright, clean and pristine. But in the modern era, it is faded and torn. I also think that this poster is indicative of Batman abandoning his childish ideals of absolute good and absolute evil. He is shown to adopt a more pragmatic ideology as time progresses. This also reframes that last page of issue 3, where Batman accepts Black Mask's offer of a truce. This wasn't him giving in, it was him adapting. We're also shown the influence Thomas Wayne had on his son, where he talks about why he became a teacher. As a child, he would often go to Amusement Mile with his father to get frozen bananas, but one day his father collapsed dead in the street of a heart attack, which deeply traumatized Thomas. However, his response to this wasn't to tremble in fear. Instead, he decided he would do all he could to make sure no other child would feel that way again. His initial plan was to become a heart surgeon, but starting a family put a stop to that. So he turned to teaching, where he felt he could empower children. That's another nice parallel to Batman. Bruce suffered a similar trauma when his father was murdered in the zoo shooting, and his initial plan was to become a frightening figure of vengeance. But things changed. We joke that this overly muscular Batman is the Batman who lifts, but maybe a more accurate name for him would be the Batman who changes? The Batman who adapts? Not quite as catchy though, is it? Absolute Batman 4 is available now from all good comic shops. If you're based in the UK and don't have a comic shop near you, then you might want to use my affiliate link with the UK's largest comic book retailer, Forbidden Planet. I have included a link in this video's description. Alternatively, if the idea of hoarding a collection of comic books fills you with dread, I'm getting perilously close to filling up our storage unit, you may want to try getting a digital copy of the issue from Amazon. I also have a global affiliate link which you could use to help my channel out. I've included my Amazon affiliate link in the info button in the top right corner, as well as the video's description. And just before I wrap up, special thanks to all of my current channel members who help make these videos possible. Their names are listed on screen right now. For those that have already read the book, what did you think? Do you agree with Bruce Wayne that bats are the most adaptable mammals out there? How did I fail to talk about that very expensive micro Batmobile? Well, I've got to leave something for you all to talk about, haven't I? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Next time. On Friday, I have a video going live looking at the Superman the Animated Series villain Luminous, and how he's one of the few DCAU original characters not to make the jump to the comics. Why is that? Let us discuss. And on Monday, I'm going to be talking about the direct-to-DVD movie Justice League Doom, and share some thoughts about the concept of canon, what counts, what doesn't, and why. Hope to see you then.